Democratic Congressman Khanna of California is joining us. He's a member of the Oversight and Reform Committee. Congressman, thanks so much for coming in.
Great to be on, Wolf.
All right, so the President of the United States has a 1-hour phone conversation with Vladimir Putin today, discussed a whole bunch of issues. They spoke about what the President still calls the Russian hoax, and Putin made a big joke about it. But the President Trump, never warned Putin against interfering in the 2020 election, let alone discuss what happened in 2016. What does that say to you?
It's really astounding. Even Republicans on the Hill acknowledge Mueller's conclusion that the Russians intervened, that intervention was systematic. The most basic duty of the President of the United States is to tell Russia to knock it off, to make sure they never do it again. And Sarah Sanders' statement is totally hypocritical to go after Obama. Obama had the guts to tell Putin to his face that this interference needs to stop.
Why do you think the President doesn't do that when he has a conversation with Putin?
I think he's so concerned and wrapped up in his own legitimacy of his own election, and he can't separate the two. And I would just ask, as an American citizen, that he be able to do that. Put aside the issue of his campaign. He needs to stand up for the United States sovereignty.
And when it comes to Russia, he also publicly totally contradicted what his own Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, said earlier in the week in a conversation with me here in the Situation Room. Pompeo made it clear that Russia was directly responsible for Maduro's regime in Venezuela right now, that Maduro was ready to get on a plane and fly out. The Russians talked him out of it. And he seemed to accept Putin's suggestion that Russia is really not involved.
Well, Wolf, here's what I think is going on. Putin said Russia is not involved, and I think the president actually disagrees with his own advisors. I think the president's instinct is we shouldn't be involved in a civil war in Venezuela, and Bolton and Pompeo are pushing him to that. Here's the irony. He's tweeting out that we should have good relations with Russia, and Bolton is the one who's trying to get us out of the INF treaty. So my view is that the president is being ill-served by some of his advisors.
He's disagreeing with Bolton, his national security advisor, and with Pompeo. Both of them have done several interviews this week on this very subject. What do you make of Senator Lindsey Graham, the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, his proposal now to Mueller to come and testify and potentially correct some of the statements made by the Attorney General Bill Barr involving Mueller?
Well, Senator Graham's been in Washington a long time, and this is a cynical ploy. He knows that Bill Barr and Mueller are good friends, and then Mueller is going to want nothing to do with contradicting Bill Barr. And it's a total sideshow, a distraction. The country needs to hear from Mueller about the president's conduct, about what happened with the president's administration. We all know that Bill Barr has misled Congress. That shouldn't be the topic of conversation.
But Mueller was irritated by the public statements that the Attorney General was making, and that in part led to a phone conversation and then a letter that he sent to the Attorney General, specifically saying that what he was suggesting was not necessarily in line with the substance of the Mueller report.
And I'm sure Mueller would testify at some point when he's called before Congress that Bill Barr mischaracterized the report, but he's not going to make the entire show about whether Bill Barr wrote an accurate summary letter to the United States Congress. What we need to hear from Bob Mueller is the conclusions of the report, what the conduct was of this administration, and whether he thinks
You think Mueller will testify before the House Judiciary Committee?
I do, and I think he owes that to the country, and I'm confident he will.
And you think Don McGahn, the president's former special counsel, who's now a private citizen, will he appear before the House Judiciary Committee?
I do, but this is why it's so important to get the underlying evidence. We need the notes of what Don McGahn told the FBI witnesses so we can lock him in. Otherwise, McGahn, who's a lifelong Republican, is not going to be inclined to implicate the president. What we need is the underlying evidence so that he can't contradict his testimony.
What do you think of these incredibly positive jobs numbers, the low unemployment rate, the hundreds of thousands of jobs that are being created? How much credit do you think the president of the United States deserves for this?
Look, the numbers are good. I'm sure Trump is going to run on them. But here's the real story. Rural America and communities of color have been left behind. I'm going to Spencer, Iowa with Bernie Sanders, and the story there is not having a robust downtown, not having access to rural broadband and high-speed internet, not having a shot at the jobs of the future. That's where Democrats are focused. We need to bring prosperity to the places.
But unemployment among African Americans is at record lows also.
The unemployment has fallen. No one can deny that. But the question is, do people have good paying jobs? Do they have an opportunity for upward mobility in the middle class? And are communities of color in rural America really facing the prosperity? I'm happy to have that conversation with Donald Trump. The growth has been in the coast. The growth has been in Wall Street. The growth has been in places where people work for Fortune 500 companies. What Democrats believe in is we need to bring that prosperity to communities left behind.
Khanna, Congressman, thanks for coming in.
Thanks, Wolf.
Appreciate it very much.